In this video, you're going to learn how to manage competitive anxiety in sports. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, mental performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. Now, whenever you have anxiety in sports, this means that you are worried about what's going to happen. Your mind is really thinking about all the possible outcomes that could happen, what you want to have happen, what you don't want to have happen. Now, there are some key characteristics of competitive anxiety in sports. So in general, it's all about focusing on what's going to happen. You're thinking about the future. But in particular, here are some of the main characteristics that you can see. Days leading up to a game, you experience a lot of worries. So this is going to grow worse the closer you get to game time, right? You're feeling those feelings of anxiety and those worries the days leading up to a game. You know, as you play, your body can feel out of your control and your mind may seem like it blacks out. If that's ever happened to you. I've talked to a lot of athletes who say they kind of blank out while they're performing, and that is a key sign that they're dealing with performance anxiety. Another one is the majority of your focus is on what may or may not happen, right? That's what I already said. And in general about just the key idea of anxiety. You're worried about what may happen, what may not happen. And you're also worried about making mistakes more than you're thinking about succeeding. That's such a key piece of this anxiety. It happens a lot with the fear of failure as well, where you're more worried about what you don't want to have happen rather than thinking about what you do want to have happen. You experience physical symptoms of anxiety while playing, such as shaky hands and legs. This is going to be those physical symptoms of anxiety, also the physical symptoms of the nerves that you feel. After a game, you analyze your play and you worry about what others thought of your performance. Has that ever happened to you where you think too much about, what do my teammates think of me? I wonder what the fans thought of me. Oh, now coach isn't going to think I'm a good player. All those sorts of things are characteristics of performance anxiety. And then during practice, you may also get anxious about how you perform or worry about making mistakes and how that will impact your playing time. It's tough for you to settle into the flow of the game because of your thoughts and worries, right? An example is a basketball player I've worked with who said he never really felt comfortable in the game because he almost always felt like he was watching the game almost. He was separated from the game because he was so anxious. You hyper-focus on mistakes during games. During games, you feel like you're holding yourself back as though you are performing with your foot on the brake. This happens because you are worried about making a mistake, so you don't want to make a mistake. You're afraid of making a mistake, so you then tend to hold yourself back. You may also dread going to practice or games because of how intense the worries and the nerves are that you feel. This last one is where we typically see sports performance anxiety or competitive anxiety lead to either burnout or a loss of the love for your sport, because those feelings of anxiety are so intense and they're terrible to feel. And so then what can happen is they lead you to not want to go to practice, not want to go to games, because you know that all that's going to happen when you go there is you are going to feel these negative feelings. So those are the characteristics of competitive anxiety. Now, what can you do to manage this anxiety in sports? Well, there is a 4-step strategy that I love to use whenever I'm working with an athlete who's dealing with sports anxiety. And step number 1 is you have to accept the anxiety. I know that's not the most exciting idea, but you have to accept your anxiety. The reason you need to accept your anxiety is because resistance is only going to cause it to persist, right? Have you ever heard the statement, what you resist persists? That's because when you're resisting something, you're still thinking about it. And with anxiety, if you are thinking about the anxiety, you're only going to get more anxious. And then something really interesting that happens is you become anxious about being anxious. If you know that, number 1, you don't like feeling anxious during a game, but also that when you do feel anxious, you tend to underperform, what's going to happen is you might start becoming anxious about being anxious during games because you're so worried that, if I feel anxious, I'm going to underperform. So it's very important that you accept that, yes, I am feeling anxious right now. It's okay. I accept my anxiety. Because when you do accept that anxiety, you are now able to turn your attention onto something else. And when you can turn your attention onto something else, that's where we can really start to change what you're thinking about. And if we can change what you're thinking about, we can really help to reduce this anxiety. And that's where step number 2 comes in, which is to repeat some positive self-talk. The way that you're thinking is going to lead to the anxiety because your anxiety is caused by outcome-oriented thinking. If you can control the type of thoughts that you have before a game, during a game, and then also after a game, that's going to reduce this anxiety. And so to help with this, you want to put together a self-talk routine that is geared towards building your confidence, and it's also geared towards helping calm you down while you're playing or before a game. What I encourage you to do with this self-talk routine is repeat it to yourself every day to begin retraining the way that you think. But then also what you want to do is leading into a game, you want to make sure that you repeat it to yourself as well. And then during a game, You want to just remember those positive self-talk statements because that's going to help reduce that anxiety. Step number 3 is you want to focus on taking deep breaths and then also just focus on your breathing in general. So what I mean by this is you want to take deep breaths because whenever you are feeling anxious when you're performing, what's going to happen is you're going to take shallow breaths and then your heart rate's going to quicken. So what you can do is you can take deep breaths to slow your breathing down, slow your heart rate down, and calm yourself down physically. But then what you can also do is really focus on that breathing. Because remember, anxiety is really driven by this focus on the outcome. So if you can focus more on your breathing, that's going to help center your attention, which is then going to take your attention off of the anxious thoughts and bring it more into the present moment. And then step 4 is you want to think about your objectives. So before you can think about your objectives, obviously you need to set objectives. Now, objectives are going to be cues that are part of your process that you can focus on. And so I'll put a link right here to a video that goes into a lot more detail on setting performance objectives. But when you set performance objectives for yourself, what this is going to do is give you the opportunity to really control your attention onto something that you can control that's part of the process. And you know that if I focus on this element of my process, that's going to then put me in the best position to succeed. And once again, by focusing on your cue and focusing on this really specific objective when you're performing, that takes your attention off of that anxious thought or those anxious thoughts that you have and puts it in the present moment. So do you see what we're doing when it comes to overcoming anxiety? It's a combination of increasing your confidence, helping calm you down, and then also centering your attention in the present moment. Because we know that when you're performing and leading into a performance, whenever you're feeling anxious, this is caused by your focus being too much on the outcome. So the more you can bring your attention into the present moment, and then you can also believe in yourself, have that self-confidence, then the less anxious you're going to feel. So that's a 4-step strategy that you can use to manage competitive anxiety as an athlete. If you have any questions about competitive anxiety or any other sports psychology topic, please leave them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each day on sports psychology and mental training. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.